Sheena Ringo, and we are back with our track by track listen through to the Show So Strip album. And today we are going to be listening to track number 5, which is called Yami Nifuru Ame, or as the translation so helpfully tells us, a driving rain in darkness. I love that. That's immediately a very evocative image for a title to have. Now, I will say, just in case anyone's wondering, Howard, where's the Gips reaction? Well, I did do a Gips reaction prior to doing this track by track album review, so you will already have seen that if you go or look back through the channel. But moreover, someone in the comments, I'm sure someone in the comments said this, unless I'm going crazy, someone said, Howard, you have to check out Gips again because the album version is different from the single version. So I actually recorded a whole video the other day where I found the album version and I did a side-by-side comparison of the music video version and the album version, only to find out that it's basically the same. So I didn't upload that. I have it on my hard drive, but I haven't uploaded that because I thought that people will be looking for a Gips reaction, find that, and just think I'm a crazy person. So we're going straight on to Yami Nifuru Ame, and yet at the same time, I'm obviously imagining this kicking in straight from the end of Gips. In fact, the only difference I did notice between the single version and the album version is that the album version does that thing that I really like about this album, where as the song begins to fade out, or as it begins to end, you get the effects build up and you can hear it sort of building up to launch into the song. I love that this is one of those albums where all the songs are kind of connected. You can listen to them individually, but the album wants you to listen to it as one flowing thing. Sorry, my phone is going off. Don't worry about that. Maybe it'll go off more. Hopefully not. Anyway, let's check this out. This is Yami Nifuru Ame. I'm not going to recap too much what I've said about the previous songs on the album, but definitely this album has got a certain flavour going for it. So I'm looking forward to seeing what we get both from writing and production on this song, especially coming out of Gips, because that's a really impactful song. So let's dive in, have a listen. It's another long one. Definitely an album that likes its long songs. Each one was given time to breathe. And we'll talk a little bit more about this afterwards. And just a reminder, this is obviously a track-by-track series of videos, so do feel free to check out all the other ones in the series. Anyway, we will listen now. Let's go. Again, love the tones. I love that dramatic build-up. I love how that dramatic build-up at the beginning makes this bit feel much more assertive. Loving the bass line. Beautiful melodic pre-chorus where everything swoons before we go back to that kind of mid-tempo headbang. was interesting to have the snare be like over like a swing rhythm. Another fade out. Yeah, this is definitely a song with such a clear.
How we're using tone.
Okay, we're gonna fly into the next track. I really feel like this is an album, and this song is very much an indication of that. This is an album which really does love to get all of its songs to have their own individual sonic identity, and then just give them room to breathe. It just allows those ideas to play out. And this one, I really enjoyed how it sort of comes in with that build-up. You get that big dramatic build-up. It's very orchestral. Love the way that everything just sort of feels like it's rising, and then it means that when this song eventually comes in with a bum, 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 as steady as it is, it feels very dramatic because you've been built up to it. So now this sort of steady mid-tempo beat actually has a tension to it because of how much you built up to it initially. There's a few examples of songs that do that. The one that comes to mind is actually a very different song, but One Vision by Queen. Kind of same thing, like big build-up, and then when it actually comes in, it's nothing particularly loud. It's just kind of like a mid-tempo riff, but it's that feeling that when something drops in, if you've had a big build-up to it, you kind of take it very seriously. So breaking this song down musically, I have to say that it does have that beautiful dichotomy that I'm noticing about this album, in that it carries some of the traditional Sheena Ringo aspects we had from that first album of, having this sense of deep, introspective melancholy and a real sense of allowing a mood, as we said, to be built up and a soundscape to be kind of created where you can really kind of get lost in the song. And yet at the same time, it has the aspect that is most telling of this particular album, in that it's very much washed in big production, a lot of distorted effects, quite impressively interesting stereo pan. It's got that sense of what at the time, in sort of 2000 would have been pretty experimental production. Playing with a lot of sounds that were very current at that time. So it is doing those things, but I feel like what separates this from a lot of the rest of the album is certainly the feeling that in its mostly simple feeling, it's very much based around the strings, it really does feel like it has a very clear punch. Again, to reference a Western song, kind of a certain Eleanor Rigby vibe to it, where the strings are just kind of punching and you're just allowed to really take in the harmonies and the chord patterns being laid out by the strings, which makes it very impactful because it's just being allowed to really just feel that string pulsing that kind of gives it this kind of inherent tension. So I really like that, but I will say as well that the other aspects were added, especially the bass. I think really nicely played along to that, just kind of thickened out the sound. It was really cool hearing more of it. I'm assuming it might be Seiji who did the bass, but just the walk-in lines, the walking down in the chorus and then walking back up. Overall, though, this is a song that mostly kept the same sonic tone throughout. Yes, it does sort of bulk up a little bit in the choruses. You do have that pre-chorus where the rhythm just slightly breaks down, but it's a song that's mostly keeping a similar tone. Best part throughout, there's no big changes in it, which is something I think you could say for all of the songs on this album thus far, with the exception to Gips. They all basically follow a fairly set soundscape that continues throughout. Now, perhaps where this works strongest is the things I just mentioned. If I were to say what perhaps works the weakest about it for me, I have to say that this was a song that, if you'd asked me after the first minute, I would say this could be a contender for my favorite song on the album. By the fifth minute, I got to be honest, it sort of slips down to somewhere in the middle area, because this is definitely an example of a song that it's got a great concept, but it really does just kind of, it doesn't really feel like it develops much after that concept's been set in. It's certainly one of those songs that is more just based around, here is a really nice idea, we're going to make it into a groove, and we're just going to kind of keep it fresh enough to keep it going, but it doesn't feel like it builds up to anything or like there's any real conclusion. And I know there's going to be a lot of people in the comments saying, well, that's the point, Howard, that's the point, and I do totally accept that. It is a different type of song. I just feel like this song started off with such a feeling of drama that you kind of feel like it's going to build towards something, which I suspect really, you know, upon repeat listens, you might lose that expectation and just kind of see it more for what it is. But certainly on first listen, I was hoping that this would have more ideas by the end, but it was basically just a groove that kept going. A good groove, an atmospheric groove, a groove I enjoyed. But yeah, this is a song that went from 1 minute in, oh my god, this is probably going to be my favorite song on the album, to 5 minutes in, okay, I'm kind of just sort of relaxing and spacing out a little bit at this point. So yeah, I kind of enjoyed this one, but definitely in that sort of album track way. And I do feel like we're starting to get a real feeling for what this album is going to be. It is a very interesting concept. Oh, by the way, I do know you guys have told me that Crime and Punishment has a very different album track version as well, so I'll try that as well. I certainly hope that one. I hope that one's more different. But yeah, for me, this was definitely a song that I would enjoy a lot on the album. I don't think I'd listen to it in isolation, and you could say that's the perfect example of a great album track. And to be honest, I think as well the fact that these songs all kind of dovetail into each other, that they kind of bleed into each other on the actual recording, I think that further plays towards the concept of having songs that themselves are more just like individual scenes in a story. You know, each song, rather than having a beginning, middle, and end itself, feels more like it is just a scene, and then the scene ends and we move on to the next scene. I would say that is something that perhaps is probably the way that I'm going to think about this album a little bit more moving forwards. See it as a group of scenes rather than necessarily judging each song as being a song. But we'll see. I mean, the next song, Identity, is significantly shorter, only 3 minutes. So I'm very intrigued by this. This is definitely the quintessential example of an album where, I mean, I'm glad I'm doing it as an album listen through now, because this is the quintessential example of an album where, when I finish listening to the entire thing, I think that's going to be the moment when I'm going to really be able to have genuine opinions on all the songs. Like right now, they're just first experiences of all of. It's like judging a movie based on one scene. You know, you can judge the merits of the individual scenes, but contextually, they all have to really work in the context of the movie, and I feel like that's what this album is. So I'm going to keep on going through it scene at a time, song at a time. But I am very interested to know, and I might do a separate video when I finish this album, very interested to know how I feel about it when I get to that point. And I might just dive into all of the songs and give retrospective opinions. But this is definitely a song that had atmosphere. Not one I would separate out for individual listening, but a song that had atmosphere, and I think it adds its place to the album. But as we've had 5 minutes in this kind of very tense, sort of emotionally introspective space, and we've just finished with that little sound clip, I'm looking forward to seeing how we burst into 3 minutes of Identity. But we'll all find out together in the next video. So anyway, there you go. Those are my thoughts. As always, get in the comments, tell me what you think, and I'll hopefully see you very soon for the next one of these. For now, ciao, ciao.